It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. The big State of the Union address on Thursday. Got to tell you, let's start right from the beginning. Joe Biden knocked it out of the park. Exceeded all expectations wildly. On fire, the president was with his agenda, his vision, and his defense of democracy. For me, there were two main frames that came out of the speech that I think are going to be the main frames of his entire campaign and should be. First, defending democracy. Didn't think in this year, never thought in my lifetime we would have to be talking about defending democracy from threats domestic, especially a former president, and talked about that. Talked about defending democracy, talked about expanding the right of people to vote, talked about, the stuff that is coming, man. Preparing the American people for the possibility of more insurrection. And I give him credit. He started out with that and hammered on it. And also this sense of fairness. And that's the other part. It's one thing to be angry. It's one thing to say, the things are screwing us over. And because one of the candidates in this election, he feeds off of that anger. Isn't going to do anything about it, but feeds off of that. And the fact that CBS had that poll that we talked about the other day, where people actually believe that Trump has a vision for the country and Biden doesn't, well, Biden knocked that out of the park by coming out with a very clear vision, one that we've been talking about on this show for a very long time because it's been there. And what I loved was the shot at the mainstream media, because they do a crummy job of reporting this administration. It's all right-wing narratives couched in terms of, I was watching the CBS pre-speech banter, and it was all, the economy, a lot of people feel the economy is really bad, and, milk prices are high, and just regurgitating right-wing talking points. And then, at the end of that, several minutes of, gas prices bad, just going on and on, all the economic numbers show that the economy is doing great. That we literally are doing well. But I'll tell you, how the president finished, that was it. He said, my fellow Americans, the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are. It's how old our ideas are. Good shot at people calling him old, but going, hey, hate, revenge, anger, retribution are among the oldest of ideas. And who's fomenting hate, anger, revenge, retribution? Yeah, the other guy. He says, but you can't lead America with ancient ideas that only take us back. He says, to lead America, the land of possibilities, you need a vision for the future of what America can and should be. And he goes, look, tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where we defend democracy, not diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect other freedoms, not take them away. I see a future where the middle class finally has a fair shot and the wealthy finally have to pay their fair share. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans, and I will always be a president for all Americans because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people. And that, I got to tell you, it's an incredibly powerful statement. Clear, concise, this idea that we're going to defend democracy from the scourges of bad old ideas, and we're going to fight for fairness. I'll tell you, it was a great speech. Now, the right, he stuttered, he stumbled, he stammered, shows mental, cognitively, there's something wrong there. No, this was a guy who was on fire. What he needs to do now is he needs to take that on the road. That message. Now, clearly, that's the campaign message. Clearly, the campaign message is we're saving democracy from the possibility of a former guy who has already told us, and this is the part that really bothers me. He has been very clear. Trump has been very clear on how he will rule a second term. It is all about retribution. It's about revenge. It's about payback. And this Project 2025 is real. This idea that they're going to fire all of the people who aren't loyal enough in the federal government, making patronage great again, and then filling those bureaucratic jobs with good ring-kissing loyalists. That should frighten everyone, even the people who agree with him, because eventually it means you. Eventually you fall out of favor. Think about, someone said to me the other day that 80% of Trump's cabinet has now turned and won't vote for him. And a lot of them are probably going bankrupt because they got to defend themselves. But remember, everything Trump touches dies. It's amazing to me that they're getting anyone to want to work for him, given the track record of all the people in the past. But here we are. Now, as I said, this speech, the beginning of campaign season, will we see the president out on the road pushing this message? I got to tell you, I sure hope so. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Sarah Burris is going to be here from RawStory to share some thoughts on the big State of the Union address. I want to hear your thoughts. What did you think of the president's address? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back with Sarah Burris.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I go back to Thursday's State of the Union address. I got to tell you, exceeded expectations enormously in my view. I thought Joe Biden knocked it out of the park. And for me, the interesting part was watching Mike Johnson. It's like they replaced him with a bobblehead doll because he just kind of just sat there and bobbed his head. Didn't do much standing, didn't do much applauding, but did bob his head. But here to share some thoughts on yesterday's State of the Union address and get some thoughts on the policy, the enormous number of policy things that he threw out. I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris to come talk with us. Sarah's a reporter at RawStory, rawstory.com, the website. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello. Happy week for everybody.
And you as well. So what'd you think? What'd you think of the president's speech?
So I was thinking about it Thursday afternoon. The one thing that I feel like consistently happens with Republicans, with Donald Trump in particular, and Joe Biden, is that Trump tears him down so much that the bar is really easy to clear. And the thing is that I mean, it really empowers Biden to just not only clear the bar, but then pick up the bar and then beat everybody over the head with it. Like it. And I knew kind of by the afternoon, I started thinking, oh man, this is going to be one of those, isn't it? And I mean, nothing will ever compare to the Sarah Palin, Joe Biden debate, but this was a really empowering speech where I feel like he just kind of took it to them. Like he kind of went in there being like, okay, you want to go? And I mean, it seems like with, and maybe this is just because Obama had such insurmountable problems and so many things that he had to deal with that I just feel like Biden is kind of unafraid of just doing whatever he wants.
Yeah, no,
he's gonna say it. He's gonna do it, whether they clap for him or not.
Well, he's 81 years old.
Right?
This is the end of his political line, and that's a good place to be in, where you go, look,
yeah.
I'm going to pursue my passions. I'm going to pursue what I think is best, and consequences be damned, because what are you going to do to me? I'm 81 years old.
Yeah. And I feel like, too, you're right. This is the end of the political line. And, once you get to the presidency, it's like, okay, now it's time to go buy a boat and, and live in the sunshine. But, it really felt like his, he was just unafraid of picking fights with them. And I don't know if that's because they started pulling him down, to diminish expectations and try and, talk about him being a doddering old fool. I don't know if it's, he finally was just like, okay, I gotta just, deliver. But I think he delivered. It felt like he delivered.
No, absolutely. But and for me, it came down to two things. I think overall, I'm hoping what comes out of this are the two main points that I came away with. And there was a lot of stuff in this speech. But for me, it comes back to two main points. And I think this is where the campaign is going to go ultimately is, do you believe in democracy or do you believe in authoritarianism? And also the sense of fairness. So, if you believe in democracy, you believe in the right of people to vote and all of that stuff, then Biden made it very clear he's your guy. And also the fairness thing, especially when he was talking about taxing corporations and paying the fair share, which I hate that frame, but the idea that they've got to pay, and they've been getting away with basically robbing us blind, especially on the greed front, on the taxes front, all of this. I think he made those two things. I think he did a pretty good job of hitting on those sufficiently.
And the junk fees and the overpriced medication and being able to negotiate more drug prices, like all of those things fit under that rubric of this isn't fair. It is not fair for everyday Americans who have to, try and live in a world where corporations are, trying to change the rules to screw over the rest of us, and whether that's workers' rights, or price or shrinkflation or, all of the above. And I think you're right. I think that really brought everything together. But I mean, the freedom aspect of it, like it really felt like freedom was a key piece of his narrative, where it was, freedom for women's rights, for couples' rights, for IVF, for, across the board. And so I think you're right. I think those two themes are the perfect way to turn this, from the State of the Union into the 2024 campaign and make those the issues, because everything falls under those two things.
No, I'm right there with you. And the fact that he started off going, look, you got a former president who's telling, an adversary, go do whatever you want. If you don't pay your NATO bill, whatever you want. And I thought that was interesting that he brought that up.
I wasn't surprised, because it seemed you remember last time whenever he just sort of led the Republicans on a trail toward just completely, agreeing to never cut Social Security. I knew that he was going to go there in that similar way. I wondered how he was going to do it. And I think the Putin piece of it and supporting Ukraine and supporting freedom abroad and democracy abroad as a larger conversation was a big piece of it. I think the whole border conversation was really funny. I mean, he just and you got to admit, like, Republicans walked right into that brick wall. Like, they did that to themselves. And it just opened up the best possible opportunity. And they're showing, I mean, the fact that they were showing James Lankford on camera and Biden's like rattling off all of these things in the bill. And you see Mike Johnson, like, you know, shaking his head. And then they cut to James Lankford and he mouths the words, "It's true."
It's true. Yep.
And you're just like, whoa, like that just happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me that they didn't. It's what they wanted. It's the bill that they wanted, and they couldn't get the yes because, well, the previous guy, the predecessor, the other guy, told them no.
And maybe that's the problem, is they just need to name it after him. You know, like all the buildings that they name after him.
I've said that 1,000 times. You know, when
I feel like we talked about this for years.
Yeah, all during the Trump administration. You want something good, just name it after him. You want to fix the Affordable Care Act, make it Trump Care. You know, whatever.
There you go.
Slap his mug all over it, make it gold, make it gaudy. Give him his rose garden celebration. But get something decent for the American people. And this is where, you know, I started today. The fact that, you know, the president talked about his vision. Because, you know, the CBS poll that was just out that said people actually believe that Trump has a vision for the country. And that vision, they believe more than Biden has a vision. I'm going, we saw 4 years of Donald Trump with no vision, no idea, no clue. How can you now? What orifice are you pulling your knowledge out of to think that now Trump has a vision other than retribution, payback, pain, suffering for people who didn't agree with him?
Oh, what's killing me is all these Republicans saying that they're not better off than they were 4 years ago. And you want to be like, you know, we were all like fighting to stock up toilet paper 4 years ago, right?
You know, 4 years ago today, there was a cruise ship off the coast of California with a whole bunch of people who had COVID on it that Trump would not allow to dock because it would run up our numbers. We would have gotten another, you know, couple hundred COVID cases, and that would have made us look bad. So he made that ship stay off the coast because, well, it would make him look bad.
Later this month, I think it begins March 20th, is the beginning of the largest stock market collapse in the history of the United States. And it was over the course of like 8 days, I think, 8 or 9 days. And every 2 days it dropped more and more and more. And he set a record for 9.9% drop. And then 2 days later set another record for like over a 12% drop in the market. And, you know, I know that we always talked about how the market really is not about what the president is doing, and which, you know, obviously now Trump would believe in. But his failure was so bad that he just destroyed the American economy. And this idea that people really believe that somehow they were better off. I mean, I feel like every day we should be talking about 4 years ago, here's what was happening. 4 years ago, Trump was saying we need to inject bleach and shove a light up our butt. Like from this point onward, there is something insane that happened in that administration that hurt our country in a really, really horrific way that I feel like we're just now coming back from. Right. And this idea that Republicans really are trying to glorify that and be like, oh, no, things were way better back then.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you the question then. Do you think they actually believe this? Because my producer and I were having this exact conversation and thinking the exact same thing that you brought up. In fact, it's going to be a segment that we're going to be doing every day of, hey, what was the headline today 4 years ago if things were so much better then? Do you think that the people like Elise Stefanik, who is saying, you know, things are so much better 4 years ago, do you think that they actually believe that? Or do they think that the minions, the faithful, will believe them no matter what?
I wonder, in terms of Elise Stefanik, I wonder if that is her phrase to get, you know, to become the vice presidential nominee. And kind of going back to the State of the Union, there was so much nodding, not a lot of standing from Johnson. And, I was sitting at a friend of mine watching it, and I was just like, maybe he's just lazy. He's like stood up 3 times and he just doesn't want to stand up. And she goes, or maybe it's because he knows who's watching. And it was like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
If Trump is watching this thing, he's going to see how many times Johnson stood up and clapped.
But he's also going to notice that he was nodding his head, which is why I said I think they just replaced him with a bobblehead, because he just sat there, doing this thing the whole night.
There were a couple of times where he rolled his eyes too, and I was like, dude, you better get a handle on that, because that's going to be on TV. That's going to be a GIF. That's going to be a thing.
Well, there was the smirk too. He had a smirk when Biden was listing off all of the things that he wanted them to pass, and it's like, telling this Congress to pass anything is smirk worthy, let alone the laundry list of really good legislation that we desperately need. Just one of those things is a Herculean impossible leap, let alone all of them. So when he smirked, I'm like, I feel you, buddy, because I agree with you.
But I think too, that opens up a freedom for, it's like, okay, they're not going to pass anything, so why not just throw it all out there? Be like, you guys can't even pass your own bills.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the ones that you want that you're never going to pass. The Section 230 stuff, and the oddly enough, the most bipartisan thing I ever saw this week was the Energy and Tech Committee passed by 50-0 that TikTok rule that all the teenagers were calling and complaining to Congress about. That actually passed, and nobody was against it. And I thought that was hilarious. Because it's the first bipartisan thing I feel like we've seen. They can't even agree on a post office name at this point.
No, and so let me ask you then, going back to this speech, because look, I think he did a fantastic job. Again, exceeded my expectations by leaps and bounds. Does this get him a bump? Does this get him?
Oh, yeah.
Do those numbers start to turn around? Do maybe people see the spry old dude as, hey, he's got a vision?
I think so. I think, every State of the Union gives somebody a bump. It did it for Trump as well. What was really interesting to see is how much of a bump Trump did and didn't get, because toward the end there, it didn't matter. He could give a State of the Union address, and he got a bump that was like a meager, sad, pathetic, needs Viagra kind of a bump. I think Biden will do better than that. I think the most important piece is that he's got to go shop it around to the American public. They've got to turn these speeches into ads. They've got to put the surrogates out there. I just heard Jamie Raskin did a rally announcing, he was running again earlier this week. And I think he said he was going to 17 different campaign stops to stump for Biden. We need a ton of people to do that.
Yeah.
Raskin's great because he's oversight and judiciary, and he can talk about the whole impeachment BS, but we need everybody out there, because this really is the most important race in the country. We always talk about, I wish we could win the Senate. I wish we could win the House. If we lose the White House, we are so screwed as a country.
No, and look, if you lose the White House, chances are you're going to lose the Senate. It's not a good scenario. And this is where I think Biden, the calculated decision and really the right angle is, this is about democracy. This is about fighting. Do we want to move forward as a free country, or do we want to move towards more of an authoritarian rule? And look, Trump has been very open and honest and clear about what his intentions are. Especially when you look at, the idea that Schedule F, he's going to go in and fire all the federal employees that he doesn't like. This Project 2025 is going to fill those positions with good Trump-loving loyalists, bringing patronage back again. There's some bad possibilities.
Viktor Orban is at Mar-a-Lago.
Right.
On Friday. That's if he could get Vladimir Putin without Putin being arrested in the United States for war crimes or whatever, he would have done that. Instead, he's got Viktor Orban at Mar-a-Lago, and you're just like, wow, this is happening. This is really happening. It's the same kind of thing with Biden, where Biden's like, I'm just going to go there. And Trump is like, on the complete other side of it, where he's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna start waving my freak flag for everybody now.
So last line of questioning I've got for you then, because there was a lot in this speech. There was something for everybody. Mm-hmm. What spoke to you?
Oh, I mean, I love the part where he handed it to him over border security. That's not my issue. I really, it's not a big thing to me. I just love it whenever he hands it to him. Reproductive freedom is always going to be important to me. The fact that he talked about how important it is to have IVF, and the Republicans didn't stand up for it. They didn't clap for preserving that, when the Alabama legislature just codified that IVF could exist in the state after their Supreme Court killed it. And so I'm just like, if Alabama people can do that, then surely to God, Republicans in the House and Senate can at least stand up and be like, yeah, okay, we support IVF. But yeah. I mean, maybe they don't. Like, maybe they really don't.
My favorite spot was the shot he took at the media when he was talking about the country and the greatest. How do you say it? The greatest comeback never told.
Yeah.
I thought that was
that was a good line. He had a bunch of really good zingers tonight. I loved the one, oh God, now I can't remember what it was, but it was like because I kept putting only in it a couple of times, but I tweeted it out about, oh God, I wish I had saved it so I could remember. But he had a bunch of really good zingers where I was just like, oh, that's a couple of people sitting in an office being like, okay, how can we get this down to 7 words?
How can we get this past the censors? Yeah.
Right.
But
I love too, every time he goes off the cuff, like you can, and that's one of the interesting things that I found really surprising when he first came into office, and because I'm on the press list and you get all these, speeches in advance, and they don't send out the State of the Union speeches in advance because Biden will go off the speech. And then they end up with all these questions like, why did he go off the speech? And so they just don't send them out anymore.
Yeah, because he felt
you can tell in his face where he gets that little smile on his face and he starts saying whatever he wants. And you're just like, yeah, you tell him, Joe.
You tell him. But all in all, good speech. Sarah, I appreciate the time. As always, great stuff.
Thank you, everybody. Have an awesome weekend.
And you as well, our good friend Sarah Burris. Make sure you check out the work she does over at RawStory, rawstory.com. For our Free Speech TV audience, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time for our radio affiliates across the country. Right back.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So it's International Women's Day, and, we like to focus on stories of, how our union brothers and sisters are doing, the stories of their lives. Like I've said, a million times, I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland. You saw someone get that union job, and it was life-changing. So even as an 8-year-old child, I saw the message of union job, better life. It was that simple. And here to talk about her journey from an apprentice to instructor on this International Women's Day, I've asked Helen Brown to come talk with us. Helen is a 25-year member of the International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers, District Council 1 of Illinois. Helen, thanks for taking time for us.
Hi, how are you today?
I am good. I appreciate you taking a little time on this International Women's Day, and just want to spend a little time talking about your story, because 25 years as a bricklayer, to go from an apprentice to an instructor. This is monumental stuff, I think.
It's been amazing. It's been a great journey for me. I've enjoyed it. I love it. And I want to have it no other way.
So how'd you get into this? How is it, 25 years ago, I don't know that bricklaying was something that a lot of women got into, or was it?
No, I had no idea what I was signing up for. I was sitting on a porch one night, and I asked my landlord for an opportunity to work somewhere. I thought he had a maintenance company. So he sent me to a construction site that following Monday. And I was so amazed, and I'm like, wow, what have I gotten myself into? But it's been great. I watched it. I labored for 2 years, and after the third year, the owner decided to put me into the International Bricklayers, and they taught me hands-on how to become a great tuck pointer. I remember one guy, the guy who taught me, he said, "Oh, Helen, you're gonna be one of the best tuck pointers ever." And I still keep that thought in my head, and I feel like I am one of the best.
No, and you know, I hear that story often. Are you one of those people who take the kids around and bore them with, "Hey, I did that" kind of story?
Always. Now I'm doing it to my grandchildren.
It's a wonderful thing, and it's a great pride. But the question is when you started this, could you have imagined that you would have gone from being a tuck pointer, from being the apprentice, to now instructing and training the next generation of folks just like you?
Never in a million years I would ever thought I would be where I'm at today. The assignment that I was given, I'm glad that I was trusted into that position. And it's been awesome. I love it.
I got to tell you, I
love preparing for the future.
I got to tell you, you don't look much like a bricklayer to me. No offense. Every bricklayer I know, big shoulders, no neck, giant hands. You don't fit that mold.
Well, actually, I'm a PCC, pointer carpet cleaner. I'm part of the Bricklayers local union.
Okay.
So we pretty much do the same thing. I restore. I make old into new.
No, the reason I bring this up is because in my mind, stereotypically you think of a bricklayer and that's what you think of, but there's so much more to what you guys do and what you do with the BAC.
When I first got into trade, I remember one of my first projects I were on, and the project manager, we walked around the site, and I remember him telling me, "Why are you here? You should be in Hollywood somewhere." And I told him that this was my calling, and there was nothing else he ever said to me after that.
So tell me, how has this changed your life? I've talked to a lot of people in the trades over the years, and from people who got out of prison to people who walked out of high school to people who was their third or fourth career, and the stories all are different, but they all kind of lead to the same place. And I'm curious about yours.
Well, I come from a family. My mom was a single mom, and we didn't have much. So when I got this opportunity, it changed everything. I was a single parent at that time. I had 4 young children. And at the time, overnight, I became a single parent. And I didn't know what I was really into, what I had really gotten into until I started trusting myself and trusting the union, started going to classes and participating. And my children, I sent them to the best schools. I mean, they've never wanted for anything. Right today, I have 2 sons that's in the trade now. I'm always pulling back, bringing someone with me. It's been awesome. I mean, I've come from the west side of Chicago, and I've moved my children to the suburbs, and it's been great. I have my youngest daughter is going to be an attorney soon. I have accountant. I have 2 sons that's in the trade, so it's been great.
Oh, good on you. I mean, but that's the thing. These stories all tell the same kind of journey. Life was a struggle. Worked hard, played by the rules, and we moved ahead, and the next generation got ahead. This is why I think what the trades gives people, the pride of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, and then opportunities for the future that you just can't get in many places today.
Yeah, absolutely. And what makes it good, I know what I'm in for. I know what I want, so I give 100% of whatever I'm doing. Sweat, dirt, dust, I'm in love with it all, and I give 100% of it.
And you think about that, and these are dirty, difficult, physical jobs where you come home at the end of the day and you have to take a shower and clean off before you get into your own house. How is this something that women want to do? I mean, I got to tell you, I don't know that I want to do it. On International Women's Day, what's the draw?
I would say the draw is loving what you do, coming in and starting to enjoy it. You have to have something that you can enjoy. And if you enjoy it, it makes it so much easier, so much easier.
Talk to me a little bit about the apprenticeship program. We spend time here on the program talking about how important these apprenticeship programs are, that you get to earn while you learn. You're not going to be saddled with a lifetime of student loan debt, going to have a portable skill and a career that you will never leave you. Tell me about the apprenticeship program, your experience, and then as an instructor, what you now see, going forward with the young apprentices.
The apprenticeship program, I feel like is awesome for those who have bad backgrounds or, just only went through high school and, and decided not to go into the student loan programs. And it's a good thing for people who, I would say, especially young women who have families and can get out there and not have to worry about tomorrow as long as you put in for today.
Now, I know
the apprenticeship program, as far as with the students, what I see now is they're more determined. They watch us and see where we are. Every day I get a question of how many more years you have? And I always say when I decide to wake up and say I don't want it no more, but I don't even see that in the future right now.
Because you got to love what you're doing. I mean, you got to love the fact that you're now training the next generation of people who were like you just a short time ago.
Yes, and I love it. And I always tell them all, everyone started where I started. I didn't know anything. And what I did was I trusted myself and I trusted the union. And they have been so good to me and my family. And I'm pretty sure they're going to work out for all the apprentices as well.
Now, I know that the International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Union, they are doing an awful lot to attract women to the industry. And I know that there's they're moving on a maternal program. There's all kinds of stuff that they're now doing that they didn't do when you started, aren't they?
Yeah, they have now. They have child care for daycare. They help you with that. And I'm believing that we're working on a program where they're going to try to have daycares closer to each job site. So it'll be easier for the women who start at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock to get there, and drop the children off and still get directly to work.
What's the pitch for young people to get in this? Because we hear an awful lot, Helen, that young people don't want to work, they're lazy. We hear this an awful lot. What's the pitch?
The pitch is to get them out there into the training centers or get out there on the corners and talk to them and bring them in and show them, give them some compassion, give them the boost that they can do it, because a lot of people don't have that, how would I say, back where they have a push. I didn't have it when it comes to me. I didn't have no one to push me and say, go, the
support network.
You can do it. No one in my family was ever in the unions or ever did construction. So now that I'm here, my job is to make sure I can grab
and to make sure that you have the ability to push this on into future generations. It's quite amazing, and Helen, you went away for a second there. In looking at where we go from here, what do you say to young people? Again, I want to finish this thought that they're told they're lazy, they're not they don't want to work. Why this industry?
What I would say is the union is hard to get into something that you don't have no one behind you. And our union is strong. And it's so strong that if you come together with us, you can't go back. You won't go back.
There you go. So last question I've got for you. And I asked this to most of my building trades friends. Over your 25 years of building and laying brick, what's the most proud achievement that you've had? What's that thing that you should go, this is what I did, this is my legacy?
Working on the Chicago public schools are probably one of my favorites because I come out of the Chicago public system, growing up. And one more, working on the Emmett Till project, getting closer to 25 years. I've never worked on a project where I feel like I'm part of history now. We're doing a museum of the Emmett Till project, and it gives me chills, when I'm there, knowing that the history of Chicago and the Emmett Till. That's probably one of my favorites.
And that you're part of that. You're part of building that institution. It's incredible stuff. But Helen, I appreciate you taking some time for us. Good on you. Good talking with you. And I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Helen Brown. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1924. That was the day that tragedy struck at the Utah Fuel Company mine in Castle Gate, Utah. The mine stood about 90 miles southeast of Salt Lake City. Coal mining began at Castle Gate in 1888. On the fateful day of the explosion, at 8 in the morning, 2 violent blasts ripped through the number 2 mine. 20 minutes later, a third explosion went off. According to an investigation by the Bureau of Mines, the explosions inside the mine were extremely violent and reached all parts of the mine. 171 miners were killed instantly. Those who died reflected the diversity of those who worked in the mines. There were 49 Greeks, 22 Italians, 8 Japanese, 7 English, 6 Australian, 2 Scotch, 1 Belgian, and 76 Americans, including 2 African Americans. They left behind a combined total of 241 children and 25 pregnant wives. Rescue efforts were impeded by the poisonous gases and fire raging in the mine. Rescuers donned helmets to attempt to reach those below. One rescue leader, George Wilson, died from the carbon monoxide when his nosepiece separated from his helmet. It's believed the explosion occurred when one of the bosses attempted to relight the flame on his headlamp. At the time, he was investigating a pocket of built-up gas in the mine. The flame ignited the gas and built up coal dust. The previous shift had kicked up the dust, and it had not been adequately watered down. This contributed to the explosions. It took 9 days to recover all of the bodies of those who died. The families of those killed were provided about $64 a month by the company and the state of Utah for several years after the tragedy. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I got to tell you, going back to the President's State of the Union address, which, again, I think did an outstanding job. Knocked it out of the ballpark, on fire, killed it. I mean, honestly, this is, I can't say enough good things about what I saw on Thursday. And one of the things that grabbed my attention is he asked a simple question. Where is it written that we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? Where is it written that we can't be once again, the place where the world takes, where we make and the world takes? And again, this comes back to policy. I've been saying for years, bad policy got us into this mess. Smart policy can get us out of it. And Biden, to me, is that guy who is moving an industrial policy to reshore manufacturing and doing it on all fronts. This is the part that I think is a huge part of this story. Yeah, it's about defending democracy. Absolutely. I mean, if there was nothing else, that's number one. Fighting for fairness, a shot for working people. And that comes with jobs, manufacturing jobs. good family-sustaining wage jobs, good union jobs. And he hit on, look, the middle class was made by the unions. America was built by the middle class, and the middle class was built by unions. I did find it interesting, though, as Biden was talking about rebuilding America with made in America products, with American workers, and this vision that we've talked about on this program for almost 2 decades now, Republicans sat on their hands. Didn't even, golf clap. There wasn't even the golf clap. And at what point do you go, this is a party that hates working people? Their disdain for working people showed. And I hope people saw that, because look, that should be a nonpartisan issue. Saying, look, we want to make things in America. When we rebuild roads and bridges and infrastructure, it should be with steel that was produced here. The reverberation effect of these investments should happen in every community across this country, in every one of those congressional districts of people sitting there, especially the ones who, made idiots out of themselves. And yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a national disgrace. But I did find it interesting that, we're in this situation because of bad policies that conservative thought brought us. Neoliberalism was right down their alley. Open up the borders to free trade. Let all that cheap stuff come in. Destroy the American labor movement. And now you got a guy who's saying, no, we're gonna undo that. And he also hit on this idea of corporations paying their fair share. I am not a huge fan, and I know longtime listeners know this, I'm not a huge fan of that fair share frame. Because what's fair? I'm a fan of the frame of going, look, to whom much is given, much should be expected. The people who have the bigger shoulders, going back to the cave days, the people with the bigger shoulders carry the most water. That's what we should be doing. And he talked about, we need to have a minimum tax rate on billionaires of 25%. We need to have a minimum corporate tax rate of 21%. Raise the corporate tax rate, quadruple stock buyback taxes, so that, maybe we have an opportunity to do those things that he talked about, that fairness stuff. And one of them, and it's a huge one, we talk about how much we love the children. And this is the part where, I was thinking about it all day today. Because, again, Republicans, we love the babies. We got to save the babies. Does that mean feeding them and clothing them and housing them? Or only some of them? Because what we found out during the pandemic is we can end childhood poverty. We can do that. Yeah, you know how? We give people the resources that they need to keep a roof over their head and food on the table and clothes on the kids' back and shoes on their feet. We can do that. We can have, good solid school lunch programs to ensure the kids get, the meals that they need. And we can have an earned income tax credit that helps families, do better. Again, working families, and the child tax credit that we had, up until Republicans and Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin killed it. And by killing that child tax credit, child poverty doubled. So we went from a place where we were beating it. And I got to tell you, and I know I've talked about this before, but it's one of those things that does not sit well with me. Because as you know, I was a kid who grew up in poverty. I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland. We were where they put the socioeconomic ladder on top of. There were days, weeks, there was numerous times in our whole household where the mice were going, hey, where's the food? Because there was literally nothing in the house. And my mother didn't have a dime until the welfare check came. Because believe it or not, the 1970s were not a good time for single mothers. And the social programs weren't great. They were trying, not great. And, and I was thinking back to, when I was a kid, because I never really realized how poor we were until I moved out of the projects, until we saw how other people lived. And you go, what? You've never missed a meal? What? You've never had cupboards that have been bare? You've never had to wear, pants with holes in them? Wow. How do you do that? So I was thinking about what Republicans had done to people like me in that period in my life. And I was thinking about how I would have reacted had, for a short period of time, as a child, you showed me that there was a different way, that there was a different possibility, that there could be, for a very small amount of money, food at the end of the month, that there could be shoes that actually fit, there could be a stress-free home environment where mom isn't crying all the time. There could be another way. And then to show you that way, and then to just let you start to go, hey, this is okay. This is actually working. And then right after Christmas, yank it away. I mean, the cruelest of choices. Now, again, these are the people who tell us how much they love the babies. They love them children. And what we know is expanding the child tax credit would help nearly 60 million kids in this country. 60 million. And I know, it's just too expensive to feed those children. No, it's so much better to house them when they go to jail. And I think about this in myself. As a kid, ADC, Aid to Dependent Children, which is what welfare was called back then, gave us a helping hand. And it was because of Section 8 housing that we were able to move out of the projects and into a little bit better neighborhood with a little bit better schools and a better opportunity to where you did see different things. And I think back to the investments that taxpayers and our government made in me to give me the opportunity to do so much more. And look, I've paid it back with interest. But I think about, that being preferable to saying, no, we're going to let you scrounge and fight for yourself. And well, if it turns into, criming, well, we're going to harsh penalties. I'm struggling with the conservative mindset. And I know, you're talking socialism. Yeah, we seem to not have a problem with socialism when it's for the rich. We give them lavish gifts. Here's massive tax breaks for you and your corporations. You got in a little trouble? Let's bail you out. But a family, a single mother, well, pull yourself up by the struggle will do you good. And this is where, again, I come back to the president's speech, this idea of fairness, this idea that we're going to have policies that are focused at working families. I got to tell you, that makes it's music to my ears and should be to every working person. The idea of expanding the earned income tax credit. The fact that, you go out and you work 40 hours a week. You go out and you do what's asked of you. You should be able to make a reasonable living. You should be able to exist. Especially in a country that has 1,000+ billionaires who pay a lower tax rate than as a percentage of their income than most poor people do. It makes no sense to me. But I'll tell you, this is where I come back to. I thought the president did an amazing job. I think he hit it out of the ballpark, especially when he started talking about his own views. And I want to end with the quote that he hammered home. He said, look, my lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on the core values that I have defined America. honesty, decency, dignity, equality, to respect everyone, to give everyone a fair shot, and to give hate no safe harbor. And then he goes into, well, the other side of this. He's now some other people my age see a different story. An American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution. So the question, and this is where it comes back to, the question is, are you on the side of resentment, revenge, or retribution? Or do you see America's core values as honesty, decency, dignity, equality? That's what it comes down to. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any portion of the program, grab the podcast. As always, appreciate you being here. Look forward to having you back here again next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.